All right, here is how you can set up your walk cycle. You're going to use that figure underscore rigged.blend file to do this. And also you're going to refer to the image on Classroom. That's going to give you the main poses. We're just going to set those poses up, time it, and then you will have a decent walk. Now before we do this, we're going to go quickly into edit mode. I'm going to select the bones, the armature. I'll press A to select everything. And we want this to be symmetrical. So what I'm going to do is under this armature menu, I'm going to click on Symmetrize. And even though it looks symmetrical, there might be some things that we just have to make sure are exactly symmetrical. So we're going to click on that. And that should make this easier for us to control when we are posing the figure. So now that we've done that, let's go over to pose mode and we can start posing. I'm going to put the character in just kind of a starting pose first. Now in order for me to do this, it's probably a good idea to set up two windows. I'm going to go to the corner here and I'll just drag that so I can have two views. I don't need these side windows, so I'll just close those. And one of these I'm going to just press the 3 on the number pad so you can see it from the right. And then on the other side you can leave it at the front view. And that's just going to make it easier to set this up. And so the starting kind of easy rest position, I'm going to bring the arms down. And actually, before I do that, I'm just going to rotate the arm so that the palms are facing down a bit, just like that. And then I will rotate them down so they're kind of resting at the side. And so we're going to set it up that way. And once you have that set up, you can select these 3 bones on the arm and you can hit copy, pose. And then on the other arm, I'm going to select those 3 bones and I will click on paste, pose, flipped, and that should match it on the other side. And then we can start to set up our poses on our walk. And so we'll start this by setting up our first pose in the walk cycle, which will be this contact. You want to look at this image closely. So we're going to start with this left leg going forward, right leg going back. Of course, the opposite goes for the arms. The right arm is going forward and the left arm going back. So I'm going to set it up so I can see the pose. And we can start with this, this left arm, the arm closest to the screen. And I'm just going to keep it on rotate because that's all you'll really be doing here. I'm going to just put this back a bit. Maybe a slight bend. You do want to kind of look at this from the front angle. So if it looks a little off from the front, just adjust. And then I'll set up the other arm. Notice I'm using both views to kind of select. Sometimes it's harder to select from one point of view, so it's good to have these 2 views up. And again, look at it from the front. we need to make adjustments from the front. That is a good thing. That looks pretty close in terms of the arms. Now, the legs, again, this is called contact, and it's because you have both feet are in contact. It's kind of when the feet come in contact with the ground first. So we'll take this closer leg, that left leg, and we're going to go full step. And we want the heel to touch the ground. So I will have to bring him down a bit. And then the back leg, that right leg, he is bringing back. We're going to bend the toe a bit forward. And then I'll bring the whole thing down. Now, in this case, to bring down the whole figure, get this bottom spine and push it down that way. And we want to just hit this green y-axis, and then you can make adjustments here. Maybe I'll just bring this back up a little bit. And that'll be our first pose. This is going to be contact. Now, what we want to do in our timeline is we want to set this in place. So we're going to keyframe this. Now, when you're keyframing figures, we're going to go to keying here, and we're going to go all the way down. You'll get whole character, and that'll keyframe all of the bones. And we're going to just keyframe this at 1. So I will hit A to select all of the bones, and then you can either go down here and press this at insert keyframe. I'm just going to use the shortcut, so press I, and you will have a keyframe there. And that's also going to be nice because we have this pose kind of locked in. Again, we're only going to make 4 poses, and that's going to be our walk. Now that we have contact, we can go to our second pose, which is going to be down. And you'll notice on this one, our figure goes down a bit in terms of the body. Same leg is still forward, but now we're bending. And again, stepping on that front leg. All of these positions are going to be very subtle movements. So you're not creating one whole step with one change of the pose. This really, all of these poses is kind of one step. And so what we'll do is we'll just cycle the poses once we get them, and then it should work. So we're going to do a little more bend on these legs. And this should be the lowest point. So you might want to just drop that spine a tiny bit more and then adjust from there. So we'll do the legs first. Again, I'm going to keep my feet flat onto this y-axis. So it looks like if we put a plane, it'll work out. Now, if you compare the arms from the first 2 poses, you'll see they're pretty similar, except in the down, we're now starting to swing them back. So there's just a subtle movement, a little more bend on this right arm, and maybe a little more straight on the left arm. So we'll just make those changes. Now, one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move my timeline forward to frame 11. And I have to reset that, so I will do that very quickly. Again, down, bend. You might want to move your timeline before you change your pose, just so you don't have to reset it. Okay, again, arm, I'm going to just do a slight rotation on the right arm, maybe a little more bend, and left arm a little more straight. Again, it's going to swing forward, other arm is going to swing backwards. So now I'll select all, press A. Again, this is going to be on frame 11. We're going to just keep these 10 apart. So we started on frame 1, and now we're on frame 11. And then I will keyframe by pressing I, and that is your down pose. You can check. Should just be a subtle adjustment from the first position to the next. Then I'll go to frame 21, and I'll be ready for the third one, which is going to be pass. And in pass, our legs are going to kind of cross each other. So they're going to almost start trading. I'm going to bring our character up a tiny bit. Notice this left leg now is a little more straight. Not super straight, not perfectly straight, but just a slight bend. It should be a little bit underneath the body. And the other leg, the right leg, is going to be now slightly in front. We're trading positions. And again, there's a lot of bend here. And the foot is still going to be behind. If it doesn't match exactly, that is right. Because again, our proportions are not the same here. These are a little longer limbs, but if you get the right spirit of the pose, then you should be okay. The right arm is going to be almost at the side, except the forearm is still kind of in front. And then the left arm, we're going to bring to the side. We're going to straighten this out for the most part, and this will be our third pose. Again, I'll press A to select all. Again, make sure you're on frame 21. I'll press keyframe, and then we have one more. Just check your animation so far. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go to frame 31, and we'll do our last pose, which is up. Now, this is going to be the highest point of our figure. Notice that that left leg is now kind of straight and is slightly behind our figure, and we're kind of pushing off of that leg. So straighten that leg out. The right leg is now the front leg, meaning it's in front of the character. It's still the farthest leg from the viewer, but it is out front, in front of the character now. And then the arms have now officially switched. So we're going to bring this left arm in front, maybe a slight bend. And then the right arm. And if you have trouble selecting, use your other screen. This one's going to come back. I'm going to straighten this a little bit. More than on the example, but that should be close enough. So now I will again select all, and I will keyframe, and now you have all 4 of your poses. And watch, kind of go slowly through. What you don't want to see is a leg swinging back and forth. Again, our 4 poses, we really even haven't completed the whole cycle yet.